Hello, this is Demetria Miles-McDonald, the founder and CEO of Decide Diversity, and I am also the creator of the Table of Diversity. So the question that I'm going to answer today, and this is something that I absolutely love talking about, but I'm going to try to keep it brief, and we can go into more deeper discussion, conversations a little bit later. How can people use the table of diversity? So if you've been following me, then you've heard me talk about this before. But let me just say, when I first created the table of diversity, I only thought there was one way to use the table of diversity, right? That's all I had in my mind. But over the past decade or so, how I've used the table of diversity with my clients, how leaders and influencers have used the table of diversity even without me, has grown and shifted in such a monumental way. And so I'm going to try to condense it all into one video. And then in the comments, if I miss something, let me know, because I'm sure there are so many people out there who are using the table of diversity, but you ain't told me how you're using it. And so you got to let me know so that I can let the people know. Okay, so first and foremost, talking about intersectionality. So I created the table of diversity. That is the number one thing that I'm always talking about as it relates to the table of diversity is intersectionality, and really looking at the unique combination of both those inherent and acquired traits, and how we exist within the systems that surround us. That's number one. Now, here are some other ways that I've utilized the table of diversity, and then I'll tell you some ways that I've heard people are using it. The second way is to expand our definition of diversity. Oftentimes when we talk about diversity, we're only thinking of it in terms of like race, gender identity, sexual orientation, and maybe disability, maybe veteran status, maybe socioeconomic status, but that's kind of it. And I get it, those are the protected classes. And so that has just naturally been the priority when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, there's so much more to diversity than just those things. And we have to take that into account as well. And so that has been just a huge piece of the table of diversity. And one of the things that I find to be really interesting is that the table of diversity can really fit into many organizations' current training and development, leadership development, culture sort of things, at different levels, just kind of depending on where you are in this journey. And it fits everywhere. And that's exciting. And I'll talk about that a little later. But expanding our definition of diversity to include all of these other things. The third way, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is connecting it to data, connecting it to the science of DEI, and really ensuring that there's a strategy behind what you're doing. So it's not just this looks good, this feels good, but there's some meat, there's some teeth behind what's happening so that it's sustainable. And I should probably break down what I mean by that. So think about what you did within your organization 10 years ago. Think about, decisions that were made 5 years ago. Are you still feeling the ripple effect in a positive way from those decisions? That's what I mean by sustainable when it comes to an organization. Are you still seeing some form of that within your organization? Can you still feel it, the effects of that? And that's what I mean by sustainable. There are so many diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that are here today, gone tomorrow, and are not sustainable. There are so many things that happen where it's like, okay, now what did that do to improve your organization's strategy? What did that do to improve your organization's products or services or people? Like, tell me some concrete ways that happened. And if you can't do that, then it's not sustainable. If you haven't planned for that, then it's not sustainable. So you want to plan for that before you do it, so that you know, okay, this particular training, this particular program that we're launching, the goal is to have X, Y, and Z. Here's the data that we're going to use to measure whether or not we're getting close to that goal. We've met the goal, or we have surpassed the goal, and now we need to think about what comes next. Here are the partners that we need to have at the table. Here's the buy-in that we need to get from our key stakeholders. Here's the action plan. And all of those things make up the strategy of DEI. And oftentimes that's lacking. The table of diversity is a wonderful foundation for making sure that you have all those pieces in place so that you're not just doing things that feel good, but they're actually getting you somewhere. In 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, you can still feel it. Okay, so that is how I traditionally use it with my clients. I have a lot of schools who utilize the table of diversity, and it's colleges and universities, it's K through 12, and they often utilize the table of diversity. So, okay, remember when you'd have to do a book report, or you'd have to do a report on a famous person. You might choose Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King or George Washington. They would go for that person, create their diversity formula for a given period within their life, right? So for George Washington, you might say, okay, he's white, he's a male, this, so on and so forth. So that's often exciting, because then you get to really dive into who was this person, not just what do we know them for, but who are they? And that's the key to really seeing people and allowing people to show up as their full selves, is seeing all of them. So that's been cool. A lot of, organizational development, business schools will utilize the table of diversity. What else? HR type programs within colleges or universities, really any people program is utilizing the table of diversity to really do those things that I mentioned. And that's really been exciting to see. What else? How else have I seen people utilize the table of diversity? Of course, utilizing it as part of their new hire training. So, if you talk anything about diversity, equity, and inclusion, really utilizing this tool to say, we see all of you. We see the full person, but we also see all of you, the many of you who may be in the room. So that's always been exciting. The leadership development programs, I'm often going into those and saying, okay, let's do a little bit of unlearning when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then let's relearn this in a way that is going to benefit you much more, because it's not just going to make you a better leader to some, it's going to make you a better leader to all. So those are just a couple of the ways that I can recall off the top of my head how people are using the table of diversity. And then, of course, it's just a fun way to connect. So I recommend doing the What's Your Diversity Formula with your teams every 6 months. Or if you get someone new on your team, that's a perfect opportunity to do it, because we change, right? We change so often that sometimes we need to go back and remember who we are, but also recognize that the people around us may be changing, and those changes can shape how we show up, and all of that's important. So first, if you have utilized the table of diversity in a way that I have not already mentioned, please put it in the comments, because I'm always asking how people are using the table of diversity. And I'm getting some really great responses, but I'd love to get more. If you want your copy of the table of diversity, it is 100% free. You can get your own free digital copy at tableofdiversity.com. You can download it and then come back here so that we can continue talking. But then you can also put in the comments how you're using the table of diversity. Again, my name is Demetria Miles-McDonald. I'm the founder and CEO of Decide Diversity and the creator of the Table of Diversity. And I will see you back here soon. Thanks. Bye.